This is Justin West from Podcast Portugal, welcoming Alexandra Bonte. Welcome, Alexandra.
Hello, hi everyone, and good afternoon on this rainy day.
And it's super interesting to meet you. This podcast was set up really to give me an opportunity to talk to really interesting and fascinating people. We all seem to end up in Portugal for some reason. I don't know why. But tell me, what drove you, what gave you the idea to come to Portugal in the first place?
To be honest, one of the first things that attracted me to Portugal was the nature, which is the coastline, very similar to California. My father's from California, so it's very similar to the area of Carmel and Orange County. So I really love that type of Cascais, let's just say cliffside and ocean living. But my heart goes out to horses and horse riding, and I had a good opportunity to ride a dressage horse and compete internationally when I moved to Portugal.
Wow, a Lusitano horse.
Yes, really indeed. Beautiful. Yes, indeed.
Yeah, okay. And how did you manage that, like living in the city? Presumably you were living here in the city, and then where did you keep your horse? Or where do
So I was not in the city, I was in Cascais.
Yeah.
Although it would have been great to have walked to the stables, which were 5 minutes down the road, the horses were actually in Sant António dos Cavaleiros, which was about an hour drive for me. But at that stage, when you're passionate, you'll drive anywhere.
Oh, fantastic, great. And we're sitting here in your new offices in Marquês de Pombal. And how's it going with the property business and the ventures?
Listen, I have to say we're very fortunate. We have a great team. It's been growing. It's been going really well. We do have our office in Estoril as well. We've just relocated as well. We've got another place in Lisbon because our team has grown. We're now 35 people. So it was myself and my business partner to 35. So we're quite proud, and it's going very well. It's much more of a mature market, less of a seller's market. But I like to say that it's stabilized. Prices are stabilizing in a way. So it's becoming a bit more of a market where we can see all price ranges and not just the multi-million euro properties.
Okay. I always feel you seem to get quite a lot of value in Portugal. I had a couple of places down in the Algarve, and when I bought them a few years ago and put them on Airbnb, I was like, I can't believe the prices, it's really crazy. And then within a few years they doubled, and I was like, wow, Now we've decided we sold all of our places. We moved to the Alentejo. We bought a farm, partly because we have a small family, partly because of all the changes and things that happened during COVID. People tended to reassess life, etc. And I did listen to you talking about there are greater interest now in people looking for that type of sustainable, sort of ecologic type living. What brought you to that idea?
I think you said it very correctly. COVID happened, and we realized that a lot of people started to want to live out of the cities, relocate out of the cities, and especially have self-sustainable type of properties or lifestyle. When I mean self-sustainable, I mean having access to water easily, vegetable gardens, and almost a kind of farm life in a way, especially space. If you have a family, you want space. And we've seen a lot of interest in the Alentejo, a lot more than we did before, and a little bit more up north to Algarve, around those areas. People just, Monchique, people love space, and to be able to have that, which is, I find, exceptionally affordable in Portugal compared to other European countries.
Yeah. I mean, the amount of hectares you can buy, and comparative to from where I was from, the UK. If I wanted to become a farmer there, you would have to have into the millions, for the type of hectares we have. There is a growing interest, particularly in our area. I know there's an American investment company that's buying up a lot of the land around us, which is kind of scary. And tell me about your project you have in Costa Caparica, following along the sustainability lines.
So sustainability, that's very close to my heart, and I do believe in barefoot luxury per se, which is very much going back to roots, but maintaining a certain style of elegance in it. This is a project that's fully eco-sustainable, all built on stilts, so we're not affecting the ground, we're not touching the ground, all in wood, sustainable materials. It will have its own well, have its own access to water, a vegetable garden, some farm animals as well. And the idea behind it is community living. So it's going to be very much who owns a house, or if it's going to be operated as a hotel, we'll see. We'll have access to the amphitheater, we'll have access to the vegetable garden, and we'll all live in a sort of community ways, which I think is something we are going back to in ways, and I'm seeing trends of this.
Yeah, that's interesting. It's become more, you can almost see a little bit of a trend coming from van life as well. A lot of van lifers, they're moving into possibly that type of style.
Exactly. Wellness, longevity, we're seeing a lot of that and lots of demand. I get lots of requests for properties for wellness centres.
Wow. Okay. Very interesting. Very interesting. And I have, one of the big things that I had when I had my property in Algesur, it's literally hanging off the side of the cliff there almost. And it was so hard when, I didn't speak very good Portuguese then, and it was so hard for me to find a builder or any type of person to give me any type of help, because all the best guys are always working for developers that are buying and selling, so it's really hard to find. And I noticed from your portfolio, your company, you actually one of your big kind of after sales and one of your big selling points, in my opinion, is the fact that you have a great network of people, trusted people that can help with developments.
That was one of the hardest things to set up, to be honest, is finding trustful relationships, and it took years to build. Yes, we have partnered with quite a few builders, relocation companies as well, and much more. One of the newest ones, which are very good, is called Renest, for example, and they're focused a lot on Cascais. But the thing is, we've tested them as well. That's why we give our Bonte Filipidis what we call a stamp and our approval, which means we've seen their work or we've tested on some of our own projects and seen how they do it. And the most important thing is delivering on time, doing a proper job, and making sure that the budget's respected as well.
Yeah, that's true. I mean, our place in Alexandra, we are literally in the middle of nowhere, and to find anybody that can build for us is so difficult. Yeah. I've had to be on the roof myself, and trust me, I really don't like building.
I'm not surprised.
Yeah, I'd much rather be in my garden, not on the roof. Yeah, it's fantastic. So, have you got plans where do you keep your horses at the moment? Are they any there?
So I still have one horse. He's in Quinta de Belora at the moment, which is a little bit far out now that I've relocated to Lisbon. But the most important thing is he has an amazing groom that takes care of him. I unfortunately can't ride as much as I wish to anymore. The professional side is long gone. Yeah. But he's so well taken care of that it makes it worth it. And trust me, if I could, I would be on a farm in Wellington riding horses every day.
Oh, fantastic. And tell me something about, it was dressage that you were riding?
Correct.
Professionally?
Yes.
And I had literally very little knowledge of horse riding and dressage. My son is really into it. He's only 5. But the smile that he has when he gets on his horse is fantastic. And is there a difference between traditional and modern dressage, I was reading?
Yes, there is. I'd like to say that the Portuguese or the Lusitano style, you have the classical arts of dressage, which is different to the competitive dressage. And in fact, the horses are even bred differently. The bloodlines are mixed to have more competitive horses, which is usually much more powerful kind of movements, similar to what you would see in the warm bloods. When I mean warm bloods, I mean horses from Germany or from the Netherlands. Okay. So that's what I was always used to until I became converted into the Lusitano world, and they stole my heart. Yeah,
and really, what is the Lusitano? What differences is that horse breed to?
An intelligence, a kindness, empathy, a way of understanding that is almost like, I'd like to compare Lusitano to a golden retriever.
Ah, okay.
Very much so.
That makes more sense to me. My family had golden retrievers. I understand that.
I have one too, so
very instinctive, just feels.
Very.
Okay, and then how does that translate in riding? Like it kind of knows when you want to go right or knows when you want to go left?
They're very smart horses. The Lusitano that I used to trade horses, so I used to buy and sell them, and warm bloods, Lusitanos, whatever. And there's one I came across that had an injury, a terrible injury, and he didn't pass the vet check, so I couldn't sell him. And I said, this horse, I want for myself. I have to keep him. And he was super young, and I trained him almost from scratch, and he was just a gem, and he learned everything straight away. I had 2 pregnancies. He was off for a year, 2 years almost, and I got straight back on him. And just last weekend, I rode him for the first time in 3 months, exactly as if nothing ever happened. And that's the difference between these type of horses compared to warm bloods. They have this courage that's difficult to explain in any other animal.
Yeah.
Like a golden retriever.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know. The way they look to me, they always remind me of the sculptures that you see a lot around Lisbon and Porto, the big, powerful horse with a cavaleiro on the back, you know?
Very often they are trustworthy.
Okay.
Whereas when you see, and you can look at it, you know, for cars, for example, when you have a good 4x4, a Ford 4x4, it's solid, it's there, or a Defender, versus a Ferrari that's going to be difficult to manipulate, difficult to touch, and tricky in a way.
Okay. One sec, we're going to pause there. Okay, we're back. Sorry, my phone was going, as usual. It picks up everything on these microphones.
It does indeed.
So what's for the future? What do you have? What's your outlook? Do you think for Lisbon? I know that we've had so many people come and move and looking to move to Portugal. There's been a lot of Airbnb that's come in, and then some people are saying it's a little bit more on its way out. Now it's become a little bit more regulated. What is your vision of the future?
For Portugal, let's say, I would say that now, like I said before, it's a mature market. Lisbon in itself is the capital city, so there's always going to be lots of demand, people coming in. Yes, golden visa is non-existent for properties anymore, but there's still possibilities of obtaining golden visas. NHR, they've introduced a new scheme as well that can be interesting for foreigners to come in. And of course, you have the lifestyle, the climate, and more importantly, safety. So when the world is turbulent, we're seeing that Portugal's a great safe haven. Yeah. More people are coming, and I think that we should be betting a lot more on rural areas, such as the Alentejo, for example, even Porto. We're seeing interest for people to buy larger plots of land, larger properties, and to have single-family homes. So it's not going to be just concentrated on Cascais, Lisbon, and just the areas around it. I think we need to start looking around, and that's why I've kind of decided to increase my team and to go out of the box and not just be in the same areas as everyone else.
Yeah, we lived in Eddie Centre for a while, and literally it went ballistic.
Yeah.
we were like, we should buy here, and then it was like, we look at this
real
estate agent and it's like, okay, maybe not.
It's booming, exactly, in all around areas of Malveira, Sintra, for example. But if you venture a little bit out like you did, it doesn't take much, and you can have such beautiful properties.
Really?
Really.
Stunning.
Vila Nova de Mil Fontes as well.
Yeah.
Gorgeous. Just amazing places.
Yeah, and I know because I work a lot with surfing and surf athletes, and I have to get to the beach. And I live just far enough away from the beach that it doesn't drive me a little bit crazy with being like at work. And when I first moved to the mall, it was a little bit of a sketchy drive. A lot of the roads had potholes and things like that. And literally within 6 months, they built a new road all the way from my doorstep, pretty much, to the beach, to Port Covo.
Oh, there you go.
And I was like, wow, what's going on? And at the moment, they're actually constructing a new road from pretty much my front door to the nearest city, Beja.
Beja, yeah.
So yeah, the infrastructure is starting to happen, you know. And I'm really fingers crossed that they're going to do something with that airport in Beja one day.
They will. they will. I mean, I got to know the Alentejo from competing on horses. So a lot of the places were around Alentejo that we'd go to, or buying horses in those areas.
Yeah.
And I really think it's got so much potential.
Yeah, it's crazy.
And we have a few agents now that are actually one in Alentejo, 2 in the Algarve. So we're starting to expand and be around there. And it's not that far of a drive if you think about it. People always complain about the drive. It's nothing.
You know, something, something I experienced in Portugal, and I say to everybody, I'm so happy to pay for the toll roads because they are fantastic.
They
and
really
they're
are.
empty, and it gets me from one place to another. And I say it's like direct taxation. I know what I'm paying for, and I'm getting what I'm paying for, and I feel it's kind of.
And the roads are good.
Fantastic.
The roads are very good. It's something I keep on saying. As soon as I drive out of Portugal and go to the border of Spain, it's like, the roads are awful here. What's going on?
The service stations.
Exactly.
Service stations here are so clean, and they have birds like singing in the toilet. Go to Spain, it's like, okay.
Exactly. Just cross that border.
Yeah, exactly. But it's actually quite interesting because the A22 Faro to Sagres, they've just lifted I drove there the other day, and they're not charging any tolls on it.
Oh, that's interesting. Yeah, exactly.
Tolls.
They had the one at the top. Now, they took it off. Okay.
And the traffic now is a lot more, obviously. Let's see how well the roads are going to be maintained. That's
very true.
Always a question, isn't it? Yeah. Okay. Good. So, anything you'd like to say? Anything you'd like to talk about more?
I think the only subject I want to say is being an expat here, being here for 13 years now. And I still have people saying, but fiscally it's not as interesting. Why would you stay? It's about the people. When you get to know the people in Portugal and how welcoming they are and hospitable, go outside of the city, go into a local restaurant, and you'll just see, first of all, how affordable it is, how good the food tastes, the quality of it, real food, real vegetables and produce. That's not something you have everywhere. And look at the smiles on the people's faces that are cooking it. That's all I have to say. And that will give you a reason to stay in the country, or at least come visit.
Yeah, I agree with you. I noticed that when we take our son to his jiu-jitsu class, all of the parents are it's like a social event for them as well. Everybody's talking, and I've been to other countries and stuff, and everybody will just be sort of sat there quite quiet, not talking to each other. And I feel that's a really nice, attractive feature here.
It's wonderful for kids to grow up. I have 2 young kids, and it's a beautiful place to have children and just warm people. I think that's what often the world is missing. Warm people and a smile on your face.
You just take a long lunch and
that's right.
to talk and to chat and not to have to hurry. And I think, how do you find the schooling for your kids?
My children are in the American system, so it's more international, but there are a lot of Portuguese. Very happy. I know the Portuguese system is very good as well, and I have nothing against it. I would almost be for it, but it wouldn't be fair on our children because we speak English at home. So it's easier for them to be in an American system. But there are such long waiting lists in many of the international schools, which just goes to prove that there's so many people still coming here.
Yeah, I mean, we looked at, our son goes to a local Portuguese school. My partner, she's Portuguese anyway, so we speak both at home, English and Portuguese. I'm trying to speak with a proper English accent, but it keeps getting lost. I went to an American school because I lived in Saudi Arabia. I grew up there.
Very interesting.
And
I just got back from there.
Oh, really?
Yes.
I had an American accent when my grandfather was like, "What is this? You got an American accent?" And then I went to a public school in the UK, and I came back with like a very posh accent. My grandfather was like, "What?"
I'm the queen of mimicking accents. Trust me.
Oh, right, really? Yeah, I don't know whether it's just something that we adapt when we're...
international schools, different countries. I grew up in many countries, probably similar to you, and there's no specific accent. It becomes the international accent. Yeah. Which is that weird English, American, South African, Australian, whatever it is.
Yeah. It's true. It does exist. And... okay, so you went to Saudi. Tell me, how was that? That's changed. That is one place, because I grew up there, and then I went back to work there.
Where did you grow up?
I grew up in Dhahran on the East Coast, and then I actually worked for a long time in Jeddah on the Red Sea.
Wow.
Yeah, really cool. I love it. A lot of people felt being an expat in Saudi was a little bit of a culture shock, possibly. They were living in compounds and this kind of thing. I lived on a compound for about 6 months, and I was like, no, I need to live in the city. So I moved out, and I literally lived in the city. I had Saudi neighbours who come around. I was playing rugby, and I was play rugby with, and we got all the local Saudi guys to come and join the rugby club, which was super interesting when we'd have the beer nights, So we'd have the expats would go and have a beer night in the bar, and then the Saudi guys, I would go with them, and we'd drive around Riyadh or something like
exactly.
that. And it was an eye-opener. It was really cool. And I met some really crazy people. I met one guy who literally had a replica of a London nightclub in his basement. and I was like, okay, so once you start to know a few people, you start to understand, and he would literally fly people in to enjoy his nightclub, it was really fantastic.
Listen, I discovered Riyadh last year, and I've been back already twice. I'm obsessed.
Really?
I'm absolutely obsessed. It's really taken a big part of my life. Why? Because surprisingly, it's really opened up over the last couple of years. I feel that there's a want for change. They're open to it. They're susceptible, and they're very hospitable. Are so warm, and contrarily to what people had told me in the past, ignorance. I'm sorry, this is just pure ignorance, because the people are just so warm and welcoming, and I've had honestly some of the best times there. And business-wise, I'm considering
feels like there's
starting.
Always a possibility.
Absolutely,
it feels such an open book.
Absolutely, I think people need to look at Saudi as how can we help Saudi and the Saudis, and not have the Saudis invest in us, Western. And that's just a different way of looking at things.
Yeah.
And that's where my interest lies, in actually going there and creating something.
Oh, right. Interesting. Good. Well, I recommend Jeddah.
I haven't been to Jeddah yet, but Riyadh I really loved. And I was at a music festival. I mean, imagine 300,000 people.
Really?
Yeah.
Well, it was illegal to have big gatherings unless you went to a mosque.
And now not anymore. You see how much has changed, and women and men mixing, and this was incredible.
Yeah.
That for me signifies change.
Yeah.
And it's starting, and I would love to be a part of that.
Yeah. They always said that things will change, but we want to do that. We want to unfold at our own pace, and I think that's kind of nice, because you can't inflict change suddenly on a culture.
But now 2030 is coming up, so there is a movement to go a little bit faster on that.
Yeah.
So the next 5 years are going to be crucial, in my opinion.
Okay.
So that's
good.
Some future projects there. Yes,
something
indeed.
you're going to launch in the future that we might know about, right?
Absolutely.
Okay, good. Yeah, I mean, unfortunately, I left Saudi now, and it's one of the reasons why I ended up in Portugal, because I was just thinking, I was in between a contract, and the contract actually fell through, and I stayed in Portugal, in Algarve, and I was like, actually, I really like this place. I'm going to spend a year here and just see if I...
That's why I'm interested in Saudi, because I feel
I'm
the
sure
same
you
for
feel
Portugal. I felt that.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Yeah, it's interesting, isn't it? Great.
So that's why you may have seen me on the cover of L'Official L'Official Arabia, because I'm now starting to do some work there. So,
really? No, I haven't seen that. No. Okay,
Yeah.
well, you must send me that, and then I can repost it for you on Instagram.
I would love that.
Super interesting, especially for all my Saudi friends, because they're all super patriotic,
Yes, exactly. But like the Portuguese.
Yeah.
You see, and that's how it's just that blend. I love it. I'm really.
I'm sure there's a lot of connections now with Saudi, and Ronaldo going over there.
Helps, right? And there's over 1,000 words in Arabic that are actually stem from Portuguese.
Yeah.
So.
Well, that brings me to nothing. I heard you speak 5 languages, and you learned Portuguese in 6 months. It's taken me 12 years to get to really basic Portuguese.
Do you speak Arabic?
Shway. Yeah, I learned it. I learned it for 10 years. But you're gifted with language. Let's say I'm gifted more with the visual stuff.
We all have our gifts. I like
well,
it.
Hopefully. Yeah. So how did you learn Portuguese in 6 months? What was your trick?
Goes back to horses.
Oh, really? Because I'm going to be interviewing a lady. She's a really cool Portuguese language tutor. I'm going to try to get some tips from her.
Well, not that the horses were speaking to me.
No.
But in the horse world, let's say, English was very limited in Portugal. And I kind of threw myself into it. It's how I learned German as well. I just went into it. And when you're dealing with a lot of people in the horse world and the horse industry, there was no other way of communication than either your hands and when you're you're on a horse, obviously you can't really communicate with your hands. So I just had to learn. I just learned by speaking to people that didn't speak any English.
And having the confidence, maybe
Just kind of went in
to
and
fail a little bit. And
also because you don't feel judged when you're making an effort. It's an industry that's very different than the usual entrepreneurial or marketing or in a big company or a bank. You're there with your people, the horse world that are friendly, and people don't care if you're making mistakes. And I did that in German. It was the same.
They respect you more.
Correct.
If you try.
I believe so. I believe so.
Yeah,
and I wanted to.
For their culture. And
I had to, otherwise I wouldn't know how to ride the horse. Tell me go right, I'll go left. I don't know.
Actually, I didn't know you spoke to the horse. I thought it was all on the reins.
Exactly. The Portuguese Lusitanos, they understand their own language.
Yeah, I do know from my perspective as working in the surfing world. Obviously, I don't know how much you know about this, but there was kind of thing called localism and this kind of stuff. And I feel as soon as you say a few words in Portuguese to a local surfer or a Portuguese surfer anywhere,
you're respected.
They immediately sort of warm up.
That's
like,
right.
Okay, this guy's at least trying to even if you might say no, you're not saying it quite right, but at least you're, showing some kind of respect.
Absolutely. I always say if you're at a table and you're invited with people and they have to change language because of you, that's wrong.
It happens a lot with me. I think it's more out of expediency. Okay, we're trying to communicate with you. We're going to have to do it this way.
You understand it. That's the main thing.
Well, the problem is, my in-laws, they don't speak any English.
Really?
No English whatsoever. So
no English? What's their first language?
Portuguese.
Portuguese?
Yeah,
okay.
they're Portuguese. So they don't speak
Of
any.
course
They come from the generation which
French and Portuguese.
Exactly. They learned French at school. And so all the family gatherings, which there's a lot of sitting down, long lunches, I'm just sitting there just listening and translating. And by the end of the day, I'm absolutely exhausted.
Yeah.
My mind is spinning just from translating.
But that's how you do it.
Yeah.
And just because you're thrown in it, it's so easy now to not do it.
Yeah.
If you're thrown in it, anyone can learn. Trust me, I'm not gifted. It's just I get thrown in it, and you just make your way.
So you can swim. Yeah.
Exactly. Swim or drown.
Well, I'm drowning.
You'll swim.
Yeah. Well, I've also your partner James in the Filipidis.
Yes.
Is how you pronounce
That's
it.
right.
Version of your company. He's I've noticed that he's really interested in art, and I'm seeing a lot of really nice art pieces around your.
He is. He has an incredible taste.
Yeah, really. And he chose this piece here, or
he did. He's chosen these two pieces. A lot that we have here together. A lot of them are from quite well-known artists, or local artists as well, that will sometimes lend us their art as well, and we'll expose it for them. So some are ours, and some are lent, which is really nice.
Okay, I've actually left a little card there because I do a little bit of painting myself.
Amazing! I'd love to see that.
We have a painting studio at the moment, and it's still construction. But I actually had a big one-man show in Tagus Park.
Okay,
in
wow.
Mao, in New Zealand, and the guy, the CEO there, Eduardo, he bought a couple of my paintings as well to be on permanent.
I would love to check that out.
Yeah, they're big, they're really big.
Yeah, that's great. We have the space.
Yeah, I know, exactly. Some of these beautiful, nice Portuguese builds, they have the space and they need the light.
Yeah, they do. It changes everything. When I see art in a room, I believe it just lights everything up. It gives something life.
It was a project I was thinking about actually. It was to have you have art in a building that you want to promote, and you invite them for an art exhibition, some drinks, and you're also showing off the building in that light.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
We mix a lot of our open houses with art events as well.
Okay.
So we'll have local artists come expose their art, and it's just a nice way to collaborate.
It's a nice talking point.
Yeah.
It gives somebody, stand in front of a painting. Oh, what do you think to that? Yeah, interesting. Okay, good. And actually, it's something maybe in the future I'd love to talk to James as well.
Absolutely. Well, he's just had a baby. Him and his partner recently had a newborn, so they're a little busy at the moment. But as of next week, he'll be back in the office. Yeah,
so. and the kids who were born here in Lisbon.
Yeah, both of my kids were born in Lisbon.
Yeah. So was my little Martin.
Was he?
Born, in the I can't remember the name.
Lusíadas, okay. Mine was Hospital de Luz.
Yeah.
Okay.
Oh, beautiful. Yeah.
Yeah.
Similar. Oh, there's one more thing I want to ask you about, and it's a bit of a wild one. Is meditation.
Mm-hmm.
Tell me, I read somewhere that you were doing quantum meditation.
Quantum physics. Quantum physics is something that I study.
Right.
Meditation became a practice for me. I was not somebody who was into meditation whatsoever, yoga, meditation. I think that when I stopped professionally horse riding, I jumped straight into being an entrepreneur, and then I had kids, and I'm not ashamed to say I had a bit of a burn down at one point, but I could never actually burn down because I have a business. So I started...
What do you mean by burn down?
Just burn out. Tired,
and
and just overwhelmed with so many things, 2 little kids, and not really understanding how I've stopped the horse world, and I've gone into being an entrepreneur and selling real estate and building. Just everything happened very quickly, and that was by choice, of course. But what I needed, and I found 2 very good coaches, one that I work with, Claudia, and then Jodie Shield. I've had 2 people really help me and take me into the meditation path, and really looking at the power of manifestation and gratefulness. And when I mean that, it's not you're looking at the sky and saying, I'm manifesting
it's
this.
not woo. It's nice. These things are not woo anymore. They're actually scientific, aren't they?
I do believe so. I think it's a lot about your feelings, and if you can understand your feelings. It's basically saying, if I have a glass, do I see it half full or do I see it half empty? And it's just a way of life. Meditation for me is a moment to really think about, be grateful for what I have, and just slow down for a second in my busy day. So I'm nonstop. I'm literally, every second goes, my heart's always racing 1,000 miles an hour, probably too much coffee. But the beginning of the day begins just that moment. My eyes are closed. It's 4:45 a.m. Nobody's awake. If I would be in nature, it'd be even nicer, but not anymore. But it's that moment of peace and quietness where you reflect on what you're going to do during your day, or even nothing. Just nothing. You're not dreaming, you're just in that moment of space.
Yeah.
So,
and is it intense focus, or is it almost the opposite of intense focus?
Both. I can have different types. If I'm quite stressed, I'll go into nothingness, and I have done a couple of other alternative therapies such as 5-MeO DMT and some things which help me to really go deep and to just kind of turn off. But also on the focus side, sometimes I go into, okay, what's my next project? What's my next mission? And what am I here for? And sometimes you need to, go back to, who am I? What am I doing? And what am I providing back for society? Why am I here? Why are we doing this podcast? Because we're communicating. We're leaving a message. That's what I feel now. The need to leave an impactful message and to communicate, not just be an influencer and show my life, but try and make little differences by, if I can make somebody smile or laugh during the day, mission accomplished.
Yeah, no, that's a really nice message, I think. And, it's something I set this podcast up for, really, is because I love Portugal. and I think there is many people who don't learn Portuguese yet, and I just want to literally want to shout out and talk about Portugal to everybody who speaks the same language as me, as English. And if it's the information is there, because I think sometimes I don't want to say Portugal gets overlooked. I don't believe that. I think what it is the nature of the Portuguese possibly is not to show off.
That's very correct. The Portuguese are very humble.
Exactly.
Very quiet.
I don't think they need to, because they're very happy with what they have, and I don't feel like it's a necessity to sort of really be quite brash or to be overly. And sometimes that works really good, and sometimes it makes it hard for visitors to sort of find things to do and find places to go and who to speak to.
That's why I started what I did, and I think it's amazing what you're doing as well, because you're communicating. We're not trying to sell anything or selling Portugal. You come here, because I understand the Portuguese also don't want as many foreigners, obviously. But we're also just showing respect to how beautiful it is, what you can do, and just, great new spots, helping new businesses, for example, new restaurants coming out, new shops, new boutiques, and just showing how amazing the country actually can be. So in a way, I find it almost as paying back respect, and this is what you're doing to the country that's given you a lot, in a way.
No, I agree.
And creating awareness. So it's I'm a firm believer on that. If you love something, well, shout it out.
Yeah, true.
Exactly.
Well, I think on that note, I want to thank you so much, Alexandra. Thank you so much for your time.
Thank you.
Really, such a nice conversation. So many nice things. I think we could probably talk for another hour.
We definitely could. Saudi Arabia, here we go.
Yeah, well, no, next time, maybe we can talk to James, and I'd love to hear more about Saudi in the future. I'm going to speak to Vasco next week, and I'll definitely mention
Send
it
him
to
my
you.
regards, absolutely.
Yeah, he's such a nice guy. I think he was a little bit nervous about speaking in English as well, and I'm just like,
go ahead. He's
bottle
such a
of
good
wine
rider as well. He rode my horses too.
Oh, I didn't know that, really. That's fantastic.
Yeah.
It's such a small world, really. Actually, that's another thing I noticed about Portugal. It's such a small
Well, it is pretty small if you think about it. The country's not big.
big.
We have to think about that too.
Yeah, well, maybe I don't know that so much. But I always think, oh, you know that person who knows that person. It's kind of really
It's a village.
It is a village.
Yeah.
All right.
Thank you so much for having me.
Okay.
Thank you.
Out. Thank you for tuning in to Podcast Portugal, where we celebrate culture, connection, and the art of living. Don't forget to leave us a review or share your thoughts. We'd love to hear from you. Please subscribe to Podcast Portugal on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or YouTube Podcasts. It really helps us if you leave a review and a rating. Every little bit helps. Please also follow Alexandra. She has her own social media and lots of really great resources on YouTube for living in Portugal and real estate advice. I'll leave a link in the show notes. Also, there will be a link to Bonte Filipidis, her real estate agency. Also, links in the show notes. And as always, a really big shout out to Band of Four for their support and for enabling us to use their music for a jingle. This is Justin West, Podcast Portugal. Out. I'm the last that come the cloud. Won't you go, star friend?